Freedom during the 1830s wasn't a right for most black Americans. They were taken as slaves and were not considered citizens in the States by many. Despite this ongoing feud, there were people that protested against the unfair treatment of black people. This is known as the abolitionist movement. One of the most notable head protesters and revolutionists in this time period was Araminta Ross, or better known as Harriet Tubman. Araminta Ross was born on 1819 in Maryland, where she was instantly taken as a slave. As a child, she was subjected to beatings and whippings for being of African descent, and she lived in harsh conditions where she would have to sleep next to a fire on cold nights. Her usual meals and only form of nutrition consisted of cornmeal and occasionally a piece of meat. By the age of 6, Ross was put to work as a slave, working for her master, Edward Broaddus, who at one point lent her to a couple that would beat her when she was slacking off, and they would also send her to check the muskrat traps as a form of punishment. After Ross became ill with the measles, the couple sent her back to Broaddus, who then lent her to another woman who used Ross as a babysitter and a housekeeper. Unfortunately, she was still whipped and tortured, eventually being sent back to Broaddus once again. At age 11, Ross's name was changed, and she was now known as the ever-so-famous Harriet Ross, a name given after her mother. In 1844, Ross married a free African-American man by the name of John Tubman. The fact that John was a free black man gave her hope that maybe she too could have a taste of freedom and escape her life as a slave. Harriet Tubman devised a plan to travel up north so that she wouldn't have to live in fear of being separated from her husband, and also escape her life of slavery. Her husband questioned Tubman's idea and even refused to go with her. Tubman, on the other hand, left for Philadelphia 5 years later. She then became a fugitive and was wanted dead or alive for her crimes of escapement. When Tubman arrived in Philadelphia, she met with William Still, who was considered to be one of the busiest station managers of the Underground Railroad. Still had informed Tubman about the workings of the Underground Railroad, and in 1950, Tubman was able to help her first slaves escape to the north. That same year, Tubman was proclaimed the conductor for the Underground Railroad. She was given this title for knowing all of the routes, said to have ended at Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Ohio, ensuring slaves their freedom. Though many were able to escape, the Underground Railroad is said to have been a treacherous path. Those trying to escape to freedom had a possibility of being captured or even starving to death. In even more terrifying cases, some slaves had to escape wild animals that tried to attack them and eat them. Through tough conditions, Tubman helped many slaves escape from 1850 through 1858, and she was even given the nickname, the Moses of her people. Up until her death in 1913, Harriet Tubman contributed to the freedom of over 300 slaves. Her heroic actions granted her a burial with full military honors. To this day, historians look at Tubman as a freedom fighter and one of history's greatest heroes who helped contribute to a new era of freed African Americans. Many people still visit Tubman's grave, located in the Fort Hill Cemetery in Auburn, New York. Her actions greatly impacted society, and thus she was even considered to be placed on the $20 bill. It is thanks to Harriet Tubman's great efforts that people live freely today, and thus we celebrate her life for many years to come.